Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, May 1st, 2024 at 9 a.m. Council members Flores, Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, and Witherspoon.
Alrighty, we're going to stand for the moment of silence, and then we're going to shortly do the pledge right after. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a motion to accept the minutes from the April 17th meeting and bills for payment on May 3rd and May 10th. Council members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, and Flores.
There are no presentations this morning, so we will move on to residents who would like to, no. Do we have any repository sales? Do we have any repository sales? Do we have any repository sales? I hear none, so we are going to move on to residents to be heard, citizens to speak. Can you please state your name and the municipality for the record? You will be granted 5 minutes. And whoever is ready can start. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Dominic Bazanco, 3610 Harvard Road, Erie. I attended the meeting last month, the evening meeting, and you all unanimously decided to agree to a $1.7 million payment for the Kakwa Road Bridge development, or replacement, pardon me. Going through your syllabus for this meeting here, you've got a contract for $2.4 million sitting in front of you. It looks like you all got caught in the bait and switch. I remember last year when I first discovered how much money the city decided to pay for a set of blueprints. I actually asked you, or told you, I said, I hope you're not in this so far that you cannot get yourself out. Now, that $686,000 was for a bridge that wasn't even designed with any specs. It was just an open requisition for a design. There was, I spoke to the engineer. He had nothing to go on, so he used the state specs for interstate travel. And if you couldn't tell by looking at the pictures, you had more bridge sitting in front of you than you're ever going to use in that neighborhood. So I kind of want to know, you went from 1.7 to 2.4, throw in the $686,000, you're pushing $3 million plus another $25,000 for engineering, or pardon me, inspection on the job. So the question is, what's the rest of the city got to sacrifice instead of having those guys just drive around the block? You know, what are we going to lose? Is that old lady that sits in here every meeting and asks for a sidewalk in her park, is she ever going to get a sidewalk in that park? Or the people down in South Shore and Kakwa down in that area, are they just going to, you know, have a $3 million bridge? You know, my family lives on Cherry Street. We've got a temporary repair from 2 years ago. Hasn't been permanently replaced. That's falling apart. Right next to the brand new repair, it just went in this winter. And, you know, if you want to look at the numbers game, there's a hell of a lot more cars that drive on Cherry Street in 1 week that are ever going to drive over that bridge in a year down at Kakwa. So I just want to know, what do we have to sacrifice to take care of the Goomba politics that are coming out of that area down there? It's just a fair question. I think it deserves an answer. I wish the mayor was here to answer that, since that's in his backyard. You know, I thought those days of patronage politics might have been behind us, but $3 million to avoid a few stop signs you drive around a block, I think that's a big ask out of the people of Erie, when there's other things that could be taken care of that serve more of the public. And it's not just city of Erie dollars, you have to remember. It's also county dollars invested in that. Those county people drive through a thoroughfare or an intersection here, not just, you know, going down through a neighborhood street. I think you need to consider what you got in front of you here, and ask, how'd you manage to get bamboozled that bad? Something to think about. I wish you'd consider what you're about to do here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My granddaughter said, Nana talking to the microphone. So I'm talking into the microphone. My name is Doris Dungowski. I am 97 years young. I used to live on West 19th Street, but now I'm moving to the Richford Arms. It used to be a hotel when I was young called the Ford Hotel, and it was real hoity-toity, so I never did go in there. So I want to talk about the more public restrooms downtown, because I heard you talking about it before. And I think the elderly people need more public restrooms because there's more elderly people living downtown. Now, my brother-in-law, he lives in the Tulio Towers, and he has the irritable bowel syndrome. And he goes all the time, number 2. And sometimes he has to be walking downtown and he can't leave his apartment because he doesn't know. And there's not enough public toilets for the elderly people to live downtown. Now, sometimes when you're elderly, you get backed up for days and days and days. And sometimes you got to drink the prune juice. You know what I mean, don't you, Ed? But sometimes you get backed up, and you got to drink the prune juice. Now, and I was a girl that used to sell the best prune juice at Bellows Market. Used to be on West 4th Street on the Bayfront, and they made it from the prunes in their own backyard. But now you can't get good prune juice, so you gotta take the prune juice and you gotta drink it for days. And if you're walking downtown, you don't know when the prune juice is gonna kick in. And so we need more toilets, and not the kind you have to pay for. When I was a young girl, you had to put a dime in the door and it was locked. So we can't be paying for them, and and I'm not going to wear those adult diapers. It's not dignified. So I say that we need more public restrooms downtown, and not the kind you have to pay for. That's Doris Dungowski. Thank you.
Thank you.
When's your birthday?
Miss Doris, when's your birthday?
1937.
How about the day? May?
A lady. Yeah, Ed. Jeez. Respect.
She related to you on the, you know what I mean? That's where she lost.
Good morning. Susanna Faulkner, City of Erie. Doris, I have to say thank you. As someone who also has a digestive disease, it's not just the elderly. Agreed. Good morning. I am here to speak about H transfers and CDBG funds. Last year, there were $900,000 repurposed from CDBG funds, which is community development funds, to go to street reconstruction, streetscapes, curb cuts, all things that are necessary for public works that should be in a public works budget, not anticipated from these funds. So as a reminder, I know I've said this several times, CDBG is our largest chunk of funds from the federal government that can go to low-income folks. And this is mostly affordable housing, development, youth programming, all those kinds of things. And so to see now that this year we are jumping from 900,000 to over 1 million is astonishing. It's absurd. And it's deeply concerning. And so when we think about these funds, This is 1/5 of the total allotment that our city is getting for these funds. This is our largest chunk of money to do something about affordable housing. This isn't a situation where we need to fundraise $30 million for a new housing project. This is $5 million that is allocated to us to do that work right now. And so looking at this, it's personal in a lot of ways. It's organizations that I deeply care about, that I work for, but it's also just a concern on a grander scale of things. When this happened last year when I was on council, I was told this is the way it's always been. And there's nothing that council can do about it. And I'm telling you right now, you are the legislative body of this city. You are the check and balance on the executive. And if we are going to do something about this and actually use these funds for community and economic development, it is in your hands to do something about it. You 7 are the individuals who can do something about it. So 1/5 of this, $1 million to go to streets. Yes, are they in low-income neighborhoods? Are they qualified census tracts? Absolutely. Is street paving important? Yes, but I ask you, is today your vote going to be for pavement over people? Because voting yes on these transfers, not tabling it, is prioritizing pavement over people. Clearly, that is the ethics of this. And if this is the way it's always been, there's nothing that can be done about it, I'm reminding you, you are the body that can do something about it. You are the only body that can check doing something on this. Last council meeting, we heard a lot about needing more process around the meeting tours. There's been a lot of conversation about process. Where is the process for the repurposing of these funds? Instead of it being handed down and put on an agenda, which quite frankly, I know myself, I didn't check the agenda until yesterday, otherwise I definitely would have tried to organize more around this. But for it to be such a simple thing that it's something that our mayor's office, our DCD office can just put on the agenda to say, we're taking $1 million from the people, from the low-income people and the organizations that serve them, and putting them towards streets. How can we possibly keep going on like this? We can't. When I look at this, I see things like ERA, lead rehab. That's the Redevelopment Authority for lead rehab. Where's the questions, and I have so many questions for a study session, for why that $75,000 couldn't be spent, because I know there's a ton of issues with lead in our blighted properties. I see things like $86,452 from the city facade renovations, which I'm assuming is for home repair facades. That's a common practice throughout our neighborhood groups in our city. Why could those funds not be spent? What's the problem that it needed to be returned to that pot of money? We hear so much, especially in the last year, of promoting the Love Your Block program, which is a really good program, but the program is to do many of the things that the dollars are being returned here for. So if we don't, as a city, have the capacity to spend these dollars doing these things right now, why would we pour more funds into Love Your Block, into the growth partnership, all of those other avenues, if we can't spend the dollars we've already been allotted? I understand with the $500,000 for, say, EMI, the Economic Development Act funds there, that to go to streets, that was more of an industrial situation. But I ask you to please table this, please develop a process. We hear so much about process. This is a time for you all to come together. These are the people's dollars. This is allocated to the city based on our size. We get about $5 million, and you're signing off on 20% of that going to pavement instead of people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Melinda Hall, Madison Avenue. It's good to see all of you guys again. It's a beautiful day in Erie. Be more beautiful if we weren't facing the same problem again here. I also rise to speak about the reallocation, the transfer of the block grant funds. I concede that street paving is incredibly important. I ride a bike and I drive a car. I understand the importance of those. I also concede that I understand asymmetric information, that I don't have all of the information about all of the things. But I do understand that one of the primary issues in a city is how its people live. And I think we've identified through several different studies that the houses our people live in are difficult, that the lives and the poverty that some people face are difficult. And most of these organizations that are losing funds because they didn't quite spend them all in the fiscal year are the folks who deal most with assisting the folks whose lives are the most difficult in our city. And in fact, for the city to succeed means everyone has to have a way to succeed. And that means that these funds are desperately needed by these organizations. And so I suppose I also rise to talk about what the process is and what the long view is. Because paving roads is a reasonable short-term plan, but it doesn't seem to be part of any sort of longer-term strategy. A longer-term strategy that involves the people of this city, that involves ensuring that the nonprofits who help so many folks have what they need, and perhaps that those funds carry over. I admit I don't know all of the exact rules about carrying those over, but it's unclear how paving streets assists any of these sorts of operations and missions in our city when we know that the problems are real and the problems faced by people cause pain. And if there isn't a way to help a lot of the citizens in our city through these funds, then it doesn't really matter if we pave the streets or not. There won't be that many people to drive on them. So I encourage you to consider your process and what the strategy is for using these funds to empower both our nonprofits and the people that they help. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other citizens who would like to be heard today? Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. I had actually not intended to talk, and there isn't anything I could say that Susanna and...
Can you just state your name
Oh,
in,
yeah.
for the record?
Shraddha Prabhu,
And county.
840 East 40th Street.
Thank you.
I just was kind of caught off guard by the response to the citizen who had come prior to Susanna to speak, the senior citizen. And I think as elected officials, we need, I expect our elected officials to be more mindful of how they engage and maybe some of the biases that they bring, some of the questions that were asked about her birth date and her year of birth. Those are not questions that are asked of every participant. And that was a very ageist approach to somebody who was bringing some very serious issues to the table and made light of the concerns that she had brought forth. So I'd really like elected officials to be more mindful. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty. Any other citizens who would like to be heard today? Any other citizens who would like to be heard today? Any other citizens who would like to be heard today? I hear none, so we will move on.
Ordinances for final passage, council file number, for first reading. Council file number 16433, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $25,119.27 of program income generated through the Community Development Block Grant for the following CDBG CD22 projects. Sponsored by Council Members Shaw, seconded by Council Members Nelson. The council file ordinance number 16433, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Councilmember Brzezinski, Nelson, Shaw, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance 16433 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 16434, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $983,681 from appropriated fund balance in the liquid fuels fund for the expenditure thereof. Funds will be used for the street paving and the Kakwa Boulevard Bridge replacement. Sponsored by Councilmember Shaw, seconded by Councilmember Troop. The council file ordinance number 16434, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as as there's been discussion and public comments made about paving, I just want to make it clear to the public how paving is funded. Really, we get this happening from two different budgets. If you notice, it's not really in our general fund at all. It used to be funded by bonds. Those have expired, so it's underfunded with some deferred maintenance, as anyone that drives down a road and notices potholes would identify. I drive down, I was in a street where I was driving down 8th Street 4 times a day to drop off my daughter at Strong Vincent before going to Collegiate. And you'd get at some of those arbitrary stoplights in that neighborhood. And I remember I would sit at those stoplights looking ahead and trying to plan how it is that I would dodge potholes on the next block. Like, we all understand that there's a notable amount of deferred maintenance. So our city is divided into two different types of neighborhoods. There's the qualified census tracts. Those are the less affluent communities. Those are funded with, as some of the community members have pointed out, those are primarily funded with CBDG money, HUD money, that have to be used in those neighborhoods, and we can use up to 80% of those funds to pave roads in those qualified census tracts. The not qualified census tracts, the neighborhoods that have a higher median household income and some other factors there, we pave those roads mostly with the liquid fuels money. That's the primary budget we use for for paving roads in the neighborhoods that are not qualified census tracts. That's the money. That's it. And so this transfer is to pave the roads in the neighborhoods that are, maybe nicer houses but not so nice streets still. It's generally underfunded with a lot of deferred maintenance, as we all recognize daily, driving and riding bikes and walking. So I just want to clarify what all that's being used for. As the one citizen to be heard made reference to, and I believe, you work on bridges for a living, right? That's your full-time job. So he speaks with some experience on that. As this money gets allocated and as we look later into the contracts, that amount of money that we are here designating for paving, the strong majority of it is going directly to one single project, which last month we voted to approve without realizing there would be such a huge gap in funding. And that's where we're at today on this fund. So while this says that it will be appropriate for street paving and the Kakwa Bridge replacement, I do not intend to move forward with it being used for the Kakwa Boulevard Bridge replacement. And I hope to address that at a later vote when we get to the contracts portion. So I just wanted to make that clear as we are moving forward on this one, that I hope that this gets used to pave all of your streets. And rather than, and maybe even the streets in the neighborhood that are being affected by the bridge, which needs streets paved as well. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that to the discussion.
Any other discussion? Go ahead, Councilmember Brzezinski. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ed Brzezinski here. I can't, in conscience, like the idea of throwing more good money after bad. This is a project that was pushed way too quickly and done way too quickly with funds that aren't our money, but we might have to pay back. I don't understand. I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to vote no on this if it ends up being a vote, but I would like to maybe, as long as we're going to be looking at the whole project, see if I can get a table on this. It's totally up to you folks with me.
What about an amendment to it to strike the Kakwa Bridge from it? Would you move forward with it like that?
Without the Kakwa Bridge?
Yeah, just using it for street paving.
You got it. How do we?
I'd like to make a motion to strike the Kakwa Bridge replacement from this ordinance and to leave it with just street paving in the transfer.
Who's the second? Ed?
I'll
Second.
second it, or
Okay.
Ed.
Yeah.
Mr. Betts says this all right.
Who made the motion initially to put the ordinance on?
I did.
Yep.
Well,
Schaaf and Nelson,
Yeah.
or Schaaf and Truth.
So what we would be having here would be a proposed amendment or a friendly amendment to the ordinance. If the initial person making the motion and the second agree, move forward. If not, we would vote
Mr. Troop? All right.
Okay. I like friendly amendments. Have a
Okay.
pre-meeting.
Good point, Mr. Troop. This was shoved down way before that, though. You know, that the bridge went to a Pittsburgh company, even though we were warned about it. It's too late for us to do anything about it. And that's got to change, because we are the final say on it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so it looks like we've got a friendly amendment.
My question, amendment,
Go ahead.
if, with the removal of this, is it preclude, though, do you understand, like, so simply because we remove this, does it mean that it still, by default, can't still be used for that, because even though it's not named, it would still fall within the category? Does that make sense?
Under bridges and streets.
I mean, we'd be explicitly stating paving. If we have a bridge pop up, I think we'd have to start looking a lot more like county council if that happened.
I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
if we're going to amend that.
No, I hear your fear on that one. I think once we shoot down the contract, it would get us there.
Further discussion? No? All
Well, I
righty.
think I need to take a vote on the amendment.
Friendly amendment? Is that because of the primary and secondary sponsor, Mr. Betzel?
I think we're just gonna vote right on the amended proposed ordinance.
Okay.
Striking the bridge
I'll
part.
reread it. Appropriating the sum of $983,681 from unappropriated fund balance in the liquid fuels fund for the expenditure thereof. Funds will be used for street paving. Sponsored by Councilmember Shaw, seconded by Mr. Troop, the council file ordinance 16434 having been read is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council as amended. Council members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 16434 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16435, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $3,000 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof from Laurel L. Highlands Nestor and Wade Nestor for the purchase of a golf cart. Sponsored by Councilmember Brzezinski, seconded by Councilmember Witherspoon, that Council File Ordinance Number 16435, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 16435 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16436, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $175,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the Pennsylvania State Recycling Act 101 grant and providing for the expenditure thereof. Sponsored by Councilmember Troop, seconded by Councilmember Titus, that Council File Ordinance 16436, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 16436 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. This takes us to new business.
Can I have a council member motion and second to move balance of the agenda?
Move the bills.
So move.
Thank you.
Is this where I would
Any
request?
separations?
Yep, Lori will ask. Yep. Separations, go for it, team.
I would just like to request that we separate out the transfers.
All of H.
The ones that are regarding CBDG.
I'd like to separate number 1 and 2 under contracts.
You said 1 and what under contracts?
Sorry, 1 and 3.
1 and 3? Okay.
Did I say 1 and 2? 1 and 3.
I think you did. That's why I wanted clarification.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other separations?
I don't believe
Moving
so.
the balance of the agenda, members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, and Flores. Starting with transfer, I'll just do them all. Ed Brzezinski, seconded by Councilmember Troop. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the following amounts be and are thereby transferred in liquid fuels: $460,316 from machinery and equipment to bridges and streets. Discussion?
I was hoping to get to the discussion, so I don't need to go out each individual one. What I would like to just articulate is that I can in good faith put forward a vote. I know what we discussed in caucus. I understand why we have to move these things forward. The points that I would like to make up is around the CDBG funding and wanting to table it, though I know I didn't have the support back there to do that. So I'm not sure how I say you don't have to go through every single one of these line items to read out to we all vote on it. But what I want to say is like I can't, and I wanted to create space to be able to say that, and to if the other council members would join in tabling the transfer. I know I didn't have the support back in caucus, but after listening to some of the citizens, I just want to understand this process more and table the transfers until next meeting.
You
Okay.
have a second. If you're tabling it, I'll give you a second on it.
Okay, but I'm assuming you want to have discussion on the CDBG part, just not the liquid fuels
Yes.
part. All right, does anybody have any discussion to have about the liquid fuels part? Okay, go ahead, Ed.
Well, you're right.
Oh, no, you're right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
Need
do
more
we move
discussion on
down
that.
to the CDBG part so that Tyler can elaborate? Is that how this goes?
All of these,
Or are they all lump sum together?
They're all CDBG.
Okay,
The first one was liquid fuels, though.
Right.
well, that's still doing bridges and streets.
So if we want to, I guess we can split it and vote to approve the liquid fuels transfer.
All right, let's do that.
yeah.
And then we can but then you have a motion to table, which is not a debatable motion. You just vote whether or not you table it or not. If you don't table it, you vote. If you do table it, then we don't talk about it.
Okay.
So I think we have to leave the table vote to fail, vote on the liquid fuels, then vote to table the remaining docket of transfers.
I mean, the motion at the table was pretty clear that it was with CDBG, so I think I'm all right saying we're going to break it into two parts. The first is you're voting on whether or not you're approving the transfer under H under liquid fuels and the amount of $460,316.
All right, I'll call for that vote.
I apologize, but my brain just got joggled a lot. So I need clear, concise.
We probably shouldn't have separated what we're about to vote on. It should have probably just been moved with everything else. And then that way, once we get that out of the way, we can discuss CBDG specifically.
Right now, we're going to vote on accepting the liquid fuels funds before the CBD.
Let's turn back a page.
Right, with a friendly amendment that we did.
No. That was the friendly amendment that's up here.
Okay.
Okay, so we've moved on all the way down to here. That was separated. We probably shouldn't have separated it. And so we need to move it along as the balance of the agenda, and then we'll discuss the CBDG.
Okay, so this transfer for liquid fuels is going into bridges and streets. Is it just going into streets, or we're just voting on it as it is?
We're voting on it as it is.
Okay. Voting on the resolution, council members Brzezinski, Nelson, Shaw, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. That resolution passes.
So now we turn to page 2 of the agenda, and the first half of this, page 3, there is a motion to table and a second. So you're either voting to table it or not to table it. You vote yes, you're voting to table.
And this isn't something that gets discussed now.
Correct. That's technically the rule. I mean, if there's some desire to have a discussion, I'm not opposed to that, but that is not the proper process.
And if it doesn't get tabled, then we can go back to having discussion.
Okay, so the last transfer that is CDBG CARES, we're not pulling that aside. That,
My understanding of the motion was to table all things connected to CDBG.
okay.
All right, and I think Councilmember Troop has a question.
For the solicitor.
Oh, for the
We
solicitor.
table it and we vote, and the next time it doesn't pass. What is that?
And we don't pave roads and qualified census tracts.
That would fail, and any of the transfers that are identified would not occur.
And these funds are on a time limit
The
to,
money would stay in their current buckets or their current location.
And our annual HUD plan would be shot, which we have to send to HUD on May 17th. Because this is all figured into the annual.
and these funds are specifically from year 2020, 2019?
2019,
Okay.
2021, 2022, 2023. All those agencies are getting funding in 2024.
Okay.
They couldn't spend what's in here.
Mhm.
That's the simple part.
I guess my concern is that with these funds being on their, time limit, 2019, I don't quite know exactly how many years we have control of them before we have to give them back, and that's where I'm right? So we're coming up on that time limit that we either use these funds or we lose these funds. Okay. And that's what I need everybody in the community to be understanding of. These funds were from 2019. If we don't use them, we lose them. The agencies that were going to have these projects didn't quite meet the requirements of spending everything in the year 2019. They've still continued to receive funds in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and then now they're going to be getting whatever they received for year 2024 when we get the allocation in May, correct? All right.
Let me also point out, the majority of the money is coming from agencies that failed to spend it. That's our agencies. I mean,
Right.
it's
Right.
city.
Right.
But some of that was covered by, 2019 and 2020 money that turned out to be covered by ARP just as well. So,
Okay.
That was also during COVID.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back to the, probably back to HUD.
Yeah, back to HUD.
Well, I'm not, but if we move it, it doesn't go to the Cockrell Bridge.
No, it's qualified census tracts.
Okay, making sure.
All right.
So here's my thought as we're kind of going through this. I understand all these things that are being said, and and I understand. Where I think in lies the problem mostly for me is the fact that we have people who are still coming in from the community, or the amount of questions and emails and phone calls that I received. This was not a transparent process. By me tabling it, giving us until the next city council meeting for a presentation or some information to be relayed out to the public explaining exactly what was just relayed, I think creates a much more transparent, a much more inclusive, a much more accountable way of us governing, at least explaining the process with this end going forward. For me, I understand that these funds are on a timeline. I don't know how that timeline disappears in 10 days, what we could create just with the community and being accountable for how the money is going and the process is going. is what I saw with the table. But I also understand that this is from 2019, and that we're not talking about 2024, and that this money has to get spent, and that I'm not magically going to come up with a new way or solutions with it. I am trying to create a much more cohesive sense for community members to understand what is happening with over $1 million that looks like got pulled from services to put into streets.
Let's get the process stuff moving real quick. Let's vote on the tabling, let's vote on liquid fuels, and then let's come back so that we're somewhat sticking with the process. Can we call for the vote for the tabling, which at this point I would
still
say...
need a point of contention.
Okay.
The solicitor mentioned that we're going to do the page 2, and then the top of page 3 in transfers, then Department of Finance, ARP funds, and then the CDBG cares. Those are not included in the table, correct? Or not correct?
I don't know.
So the last two transfers
Here's
are
my
not
question.
included in the table?
I don't think I have the votes to table this. Am I allowed to just withdraw it?
I mean, it's okay to have everybody vote. I like for everybody to have their votes heard so that we know where we stand and so that we can feel valid in our principles. That's not a problem. I mean, if it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail, but also I understand we get pressure from community to do certain things, and you don't want to be held accountable to votes that you don't feel within conscience. I was very clear when I became president that everybody can vote their conscience. We can vote our conscience, Tyler.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
I'm okay with being held accountable. I like being, that's
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I used to work in the Economic Development Department. Just this week, I started as the Assistant Finance Director. So with what happens with CDBG funds is they're in a specific grant year. They're allocated to all these organizations. If they can't spend it, then it gets reprogrammed to another organization and another and another. So these older funds, it's not use it or lose it, but there is a time limit on it as to where we can only have so much sitting there. So these funds, yes, they're from older funds, but we need to use them quickly so that we keep that 1.5 ratio that's required for CDBG funds. Does that answer your question? Do you have any more questions?
I always have a million questions. I want to go back to what Chuck was saying, though. Like, I don't want to hold up the process of it. For me, it would make more sense if we get this out there first, right? So that there's not so much, so this process is much more clear, and it doesn't just look like we just took $1 million.
So this was actually in the newspaper. It is required for CDBG and HUD regulations. It has to be put out there. We actually had it's not a citizens to be heard, but where people can come in and discuss it. There's also, I believe there's already been 4 meetings regarding these items.
I know. I was at most of those meetings. It's just, that's for another discussion out of time, but I appreciate you. Thank you.
Question. So because we're at a limit of only being able to house 1.5 million, are we trying to spend these funds?
It's not 1.5 million. It's a ratio of 1.5.
Okay, the ratio of 1.5.
I believe offhand it's like $3-4 million that we can have sitting there.
Okay, and we're trying to not have it sitting when we get the new.
Yes, so we're trying to
deposit
get
in
that
May.
ratio under 1.5 as of May 2nd, which we did hit it this year, but we still have to worry about May 2nd of next year.
Alrighty, Lori, I believe you can call for the vote.
This is on tabling.
Yeah.
You're voting yes, table, no, not table.
Okay, I'm still unclear if it's all transfers or just, okay.
Leave it as all, and then we can, if they want to pull it out after.
Voting on the motion to table all CDBG resolutions. Councilmember Brzezinski.
All transfer resolutions. All transfer
Transfer
resolutions.
resolutions, thank you. Councilmember Brzezinski, voting to table. Nelson?
Yes, it's quiet, right?
Nelson?
No.
Schaaf?
No.
Titus?
Yes.
Troop,
No.
Witherspoon,
No.
Flores. Okay, I'm going to do this again. Brzezinski was a yes. Nelson and Schaaf were a no. Titus was a yes. Troop was a no. Witherspoon was a no. Flores was a yes. Did I say those correctly?
Correct.
So the motion fails to table 3-4.
Call for the vote on the liquid fuels.
You did vote on liquid
Okay,
fuels.
okay. Okay. Did we really?
Yes, that was 7-0.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, now we're looking at the transfer for $99,810, sponsored by Councilmember Schaaf, seconded by Nelson, to transfer these funds into $86,452 into street reconstruction and $13,358.07 into salaries. Voting on the resolution, Councilmembers Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. That transfer passes yeas 7, nays 0. Now we're looking at $52,073.19. This is going into streetscapes and curb cuts. Council members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus.
No.
Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Motion passes 6-1. We're looking at transfer number for $1,015,327.85. Going into street reconstruction, streetscapes and curb cuts, and the administration. Council members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus.
No.
Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Motion passes 6-1. We're looking at the transfer for $25,177.09 from MCRC to street reconstruction. Council members Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus.
No.
Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. 6-1. Transfer passes. We're looking at $11,265.13 into the administration. Councilmembers Brzezinski, Nelson,
Whoa, slow down.
Page 3, second one down. The big chunk right here.
$11,265.
Okay, we're not doing this yet.
Not yet.
All right.
I'll make sure you're there.
Brzezinski,
Yeah.
Nelson,
Thank you.
Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. Motion passes 7-0. Now we're talking about the transfer of $170,634.63 going into the Booker T. Washington Center and St. Martin Center. Council members Brzezinski.
Wait, discussion.
Right.
For all of the, for separating all of this apart, I don't know what the process was to get to this point of 4 entities getting transferred into 2 that seem to be related, but I like this a lot better. And I'm sure that's why this one will end up passing unanimously, but I think this is an example of what we want to see out of this funding.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Brzezinski, Nelson, Schaaf, Titus, Troop, Witherspoon, Flores. 7-0. Under contracts, number 1, a resolution resolved by the City Council of City of Erie that the proper city officials be and are hereby authorized and directed to execute an engineering agreement between the City of Erie and Trans System Corporation doing business as Trans System Corporation Consultants out of Pittsburgh, PA, for the construction of consultation services and Cockrell Boulevard Bridge Replacement project in the amount of $25,272. Discussion?
I think everybody understands it from the previous discussion.
Okay, voting on the resolution. Members Brzezinski?
No.
Nelson?
No.
Schaaf?
No.
Titus?
No.
Troop?
No.
Witherspoon?
Yes.
Flores?
No.
Motion fails to pass 1-6. Number 3, under contracts. Resolved by the Council of Erie that the contract for the Cockrell Boulevard Bridge Replacement Project, bid number 1819-24, be awarded to Shivers Construction Company in Fairview in the amount of $2,424,992.30. Discussion? Voting on the resolution. Brzezinski?
No.
Nelson?
No.
Schaaf?
No.
Titus?
No.
Troop?
No.
Witherspoon?
Yes.
Flores?
No.
Motion fails to pass 1-6. I believe this takes us to committee reports.
All righty, I'll let Councilmember Ed Brzezinski start, since he looks like the most ready of us all. Everyone's like shuffling papers right now.
No big problem. Well, the acting director at the Port Authority is now the official director. Ms. Julie Slomsky was unanimously appointed new port boss. A whole lot of things going on down there, from circular, what do they call those things?
Roundabouts.
Roundabouts, that's what they call them. Roundabouts and the coke plant, a lot of exciting things, and it's good to see somebody with the pedal to the metal, so to speak. Julie's right on top of the things that are going there. I look forward to a lot more things happening down there in a positive way. That's pretty much all I have. Our Seawolves are still doing pretty decent. We have our little pitcher Job there, who is on MLB pitching, which puts the whole Tiger Seawolf organization on the front page, which we all know and love. Anyway, that's all I have, and I give my extra minutes to Ms. Schaaf, just in case she needs them.
Thank you so kindly. Go ahead, Council Member Schaaf.
Thank you, Madam President. I attended the Water Authority meeting, and because of the construction, I was actually stuck in traffic for a while. They're probably, I think, going to move their meetings to the Summerheim for their meetings. I would suggest anyone traveling to avoid the Bayfront Highway, especially during peak hours. And we had a visit, I'll let Mo talk about that, to the Booker T. Washington. I attended Bishop Brock's summit on the wealth gap management for an hour that I could attend, and sponsored by Jeremy Young, was very, very good. Like, I was blown away by what they're doing there, and it's inside Mercyhurst University. On Monday, I attended the West Side Saints Neighborhood Watch, and thank you to Tracy and Liz from the city with redevelopment and Love Your Block. It's always great to get together with the community and answer any questions that they may have. Their concerns are about the speed in their neighborhood, since people are traveling from east to west and they're not adhering the speed limits. I noticed yesterday, traveling along West 7th myself, that there is one 25-mile-an-hour speed limit right around here by Gannon, and then you can go all the way across West 7th. I think I went to Cascade without seeing another speed limit. The Jefferson Society, thank you very much, hosted Abkar Hussain's The Promise of an American Immigrant Story. Mayor Joe Schember and his wife were there, and we got to meet Abkar, who is the youngest immigrant on the planning cabinet at the Governor Josh Shapiro's. His story was absolutely amazing. When he was 10 years old, his family won a diversity Welcome to America lottery, but they had to have a sponsorship, and they had some roadblocks along the way, and gave their money to someone that did not benefit their family, and then they were supposed to arrive on the day that the World Trade Center was attacked, and thankfully their dad planned ahead of time, and they came like a day or two earlier, but with their name Hussain, of course, that wasn't very welcoming after the incident, and unfortunately his father passed away of heat stroke 3 years into. He was such a hard worker, working 3 jobs for their family, but Google him, amazing story, just amazing. I met with Emily Fetchko about public restrooms. I too have irritable bowel, so let's get it out there. People have problems, they need a restroom. Right. This month is Mental Health Month, and life is a balance, so know your limitations, and do self-care and do the best you can, but keep it so that you have that mental health balance. I went to the Congregation of the Divine Spirits in Canton, Ohio on Saturday for Sister Rita's funeral service. The Congregation of the Divine Spirits was right here in the Gannon footprint on West 6th Street, across the street from the building, the United Way, that's no longer there. But they were involved with Catholic teachings at Our Lady of Mount Carmel and St. James since 1957. They left about 8 years ago or so, but they completely devoted their lives to the religious education of children in the area, and I had attended 1st through 8th grade at St. James, graduated and came back, and my career has been there with the sisters, and they definitely deserve a shout out. And my husband deserves a shout out because today is his last day of work, and he's retiring, so life will change for us. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
I want to start with addressing some of the public comments. I think the last public comment, that was probably a fair part, me, that you were criticizing on that when the one elderly woman made reference to Ed knowing what she was talking about. I failed to continue to compose myself in a professional manner. But her points were very compelling.
Valid.
And yeah, and I think something that we need to continue to applaud Kathy's diligence, or Councilwoman Schaaf's diligence in moving that forward. There was another public comment about Goomba politics. I'm pretty sure that one's derogatory, and I probably shouldn't have repeated, but that got me laughing. I think one of the important things is that when we're getting responses on this, the budget for this is a citywide budget. And while we may be getting surveys and stuff as to what the specific, people may lean, and that's basically was what I've been hearing is that, I'd prefer, but it doesn't make any difference to me. And then the rest of the city goes without paving this year, and that's not without paving, but a 50% reduction. I mean, that's a 30% reduction. I mean, it was a significant margin. So, I mean, I really I want to look at this from a citywide thing, and I think that those challenges brought forth about Cherry Street, especially knowing your background, were particularly compelling. As far as liaison positions, I filled in for the Towing Review Board. That's always
interesting.
Yeah, that's always interesting. I think that's the most descriptive word. One thing is that your stationary cars, this is something the public needs to know. There's been a law in the book for 60-something years about stationary cars and that you need to move them. We didn't really have a way to track that real well in the 60s, and I don't think we've had a way to track that well for 50-something years. We have a way to track that now because of pictures. like people could just drive by and register where your car, where the tires are, and they could just track that. So when they come back through, they could identify really quickly. So it seems like the enforcement of that's occurring now instead of the people that had generally enforced it having to go out with a piece of chalk and draw on it. They're doing it much more efficiently now. So I think people should expect enforcement there. Other spots of actual liaisonship, zoning, airport, environmental advisory committee, and CRIS. CRIS isn't meeting. Senate's in session now, but it doesn't look like 1064 is moving anywhere. We've got the environmental advisory committee is still sort of in an organizational direction stage. Airport had just general business, and zoning. I tuned in for that. That seemed to be pretty general as well. One last thing, on a personal note, I was out of town for a weekend and had an opportunity to go Porch Fest, which is something I organize in the West Bayfront the last weekend of September every year. Had an opportunity to go see it in Memphis and to pick up some of their practices that I think are, there are one or two things to pick up there, but it's always a great opportunity to be in other communities, seeing stuff that they're doing and being able to bring back some of those ideas here. So, Porch Fest is not one of the things that city funds or anything like that, but it's a big event, and I'm looking forward to it this year with a couple new ideas.
Nice. Well, we look forward for the updates. It's something fun to do in our summer, so we enjoy that. Councilmember Troop.
Thanks, Madam President. So I want to talk about our visit to Booker T. Washington Center on April 22nd. As you know, we're trying to reach out as a council and work with organizations, volunteer time, organizations that deal with youth and stuff like that. So thanks to Chantel Hilliard, who is over the Booker T. Washington Center, and Tim Cook for allowing us to come in. They gave us a tour around the building, seen the facilities, seen the programs they have. They did offer us an opportunity to come back sometime to really, really dig in and volunteer with some of the youth. We learned about a couple nice programs they have over there. One program, a young lady named Emmy Dallas Serrano runs a nice government-style program with youth where she's teaching them about legislation and things like that. She takes them down to Harrisburg. With other high schools or other youth from other cities that do the same thing, and they have a competition basically.
They write legislation.
They write legislation. It was a great program. I believe that some members of council might be actually inviting her down sometime to talk about it. Also learned about a baby boomers program over there, which that's my 5 minutes. Which my mother actually runs that over there.
Nice.
So it's a senior citizen program over there that they do, trying to keep them engaged, keep them involved, people who are retired.
How often do they meet?
I believe it's almost every day, around 5 o'clock or something like that. I think they meet, and they do different activities. They travel, they do different things like that together. Okay. Also, I work in schools, and about 20 days left in school. I encourage especially high school parents to contact your school counselors, because as in high school, you have to pass the classes. So for example, you might get a kid who's been in high school 4 years who wakes up and says, oh, I'm still a 10th grader, because they haven't passed the classes. So they have to pass the classes. I would start getting a hold of the counselors now, because I know I've seen summer school applications coming out. And you want to get them in those classes so that, when it's time to graduate, they're on time. Also, we were talking about streets a lot today. So I had, people come down a lot of times and they scream at us about the streets in their neighborhood, this, that. One of our citizens made a good point today about road usage. You should look at like the amount that the road is used. I did some looking into that before. Different cities, they actually have a process. They have a line that people can call where they can make complaints about the roads. I think it was called 311. Okay, they also had, like a city team that assessed all the roads in the city. And they also would bring in like a car that has like this special, like stuff that's connected to the car so it can ride around the city and it can tell the city which streets are the worst. They give them a grade, and that's how they kind of figure out what streets. And that avoids people coming down and saying, my streets never get fixed, this happens. Even though, a person might live in a neighborhood where the street's bad, but if 12th Street is bad, we know you have to kind of look at usage. So, that might be something we might have to think about, is a process to figuring out how we're going to, deal with our streets in the city. So that's my report for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tyler Titus.
Thank you. I will keep mine brief. I was out last week with a knee replacement, and so I'm still playing a little bit of catch-up with all the groups. I do want to thank, though, the mayor and Renee and Public Works that we had met on April 24th with the director of the zoo and just several other board members to just talk about, again, collaboration. I know I talk about the zoo a lot, but it's just what it is doing and what it brings into the city is really quite critical. And some of the projects that they have on the table or that they're looking at doing, I'm pretty excited about. And I was excited that the administration showed up quite ready to dive into some of these projects as well too. So thank you to the mayor and his team for that. To kind of go back to with some of the discussion that we had earlier, just a lot of the members of the community that I've been meeting with, there's just a lot of, I think, still confusion. We saw when we came in for some of the public hearings that we're just not getting a lot of people showing up. I think it's, again, why it's so important that we're going out this summer to the different organizations for people to kind of meet them where they are. I think that this just continues to be an area that's a bit of a special interest of mine is how do we rebuild this trust? How do we rebuild the buy-in with the community so that they feel that their voices are being heard? And I know sometimes I don't always get the questions right or the process right, but I'll get it because my brain won't let me not. It's just the way the puzzle will go. And then next week or on our next meeting, I'll be able to report out on all my liaison positions. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Witherspoon.
Thank you, Madam President. Along with Kathy, I attended the Eagles Nest program, and it was an outstanding program. Many teachers were there from the school district and the superintendent as well. He was on a part of the panel. It was a very good turnout. He drew individuals from New Jersey, Columbus, Ohio, and I think one from Chicago. But it was a very, very good program. He was doing it annually until COVID hit, and so we can expect to see the Eagles Nest doing it again next year. The Housing Authority, the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program will be available from May 13th to May 17th. They are expecting up to 2,000 individuals applying for the Section 8 housing. Selections will be made through a network of technology. So the 13th of May through the 17th of May, folks can apply. The Housing Authority also partner with the MCRC in the John Horan Gardens Apartments to provide free tax preparation to over 200 public housing and Section 8 participants, returning over $350,000 to their residents. And that was a record for the Housing Authority. I had mentioned previously that Mr. Mike Fraley is retiring. June 7th will be his final day. The board has approved. Last name is Denise. She will become the executive director for the Erie Housing Authority. I've met with her on several occasions, very sharp individual. She was the previous director of the Housing Authority in McCain, PA. I attended the symposium yesterday and was very good, as usual, hosted by a Knox law firm. Very good. It was a full day, and they had some outstanding speakers from state and federal, as well as their law firm. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Before I go, I'm going to let Councilmember Troop make a comment. He left something out, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Madam President, thank you. Just wanted to thank Councilmember Titus, Shaw, Flores, and Witherspoon for coming to the Booker T. Washington Center when we went. I know other people could have came. They had other commitments, but thanks to those who did arrive
Thank you.
that day.
No problem. Thanks for setting that up. All right. I'm going to go with my report. It's been quite a busy last 2 weeks. On April 18th, Councilmember Schaft and myself, we went to the East Side Grassroots Coalition Urban Erie Community Development meeting. That was a nice meeting, really insightful on the neighborhood and what they're doing in that area. On April 20th, I did an interview with Councilmember Troop that he shows kids in the school, which I'm looking forward to the feedback that they have for us on that. April 22nd, we volunteered at the Booker T. Center with Councilmember Troop. Thank you to everyone who was able to make it, and hopefully in the future, more members will be able to attend. April 23rd was Election Day for the primary, but I also attended the Federal Resource Corporation's lunch, sponsored by Jeremy Young, like Councilmember Schaaf had mentioned. Tuesdays, 10 a.m. department head meetings go pretty quickly, but it's nice to have that update. As Councilmember Schaaf had mentioned, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, the 1st through the 31st, but it's also Asian Pacific American Heritage Month as well. So if we have any of our citizens out there in the community, it's time to celebrate all the diversity, which is always welcomed in our community because we are a big melting pot. I want to comment about, with it getting warmer, kids are out playing. Please watch our speeds. Please make sure that when we are going through neighborhoods, we are aware that kids are enjoying the weather as well. And sometimes they get excited with the balls and the bicycles, that we are the adults and we have a very strong vehicle that could be the end. So we don't need to be the reason why a family is having a tragedy this summer. So let's just be aware of our surroundings. I also wanted to comment on the tire and electrics recycling event that is happening this May 4th, so this Saturday, 9 to 1. It is for city residents only. Please have your photo ID, and it is at the Erie Municipal Garage, which is 1926 Holland Street. So please show up early. It will be a long line. People do come and use that service. So hopefully we can do it more than once a year, because I feel like people really do use that. And then to reiterate on a comment I made last meeting, pothole repair hotline is 814-870-1340. Please call and let them know if there is a street or an area that you're driving over repeatedly and you notice something if you see something, say something. We can't get ahead of it until it's such a bad problem that we might have to do the whole street. But let's just do our part so that we can make our city ready for spring and summer and have a great summer. I have nothing else to comment, and I will ask Teresa if she has a report.
Madam President, for a second, for the good of the order, everybody should feel much more comfortable and secure. Chief, if you can hear us out there, they have been awarded the cameras.
Oh,
so
nice.
now when you come into City Hall, smile because you are on candid camera, which is a very good thing from security purposes too. I just want to congratulate you there, Chief, if you can hear me.
On getting the
Okay.
cameras. Nice, nice, nice.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Teresa. And any report? Alrighty, Solicitor's Office. Jason, no report. Renee, do you have a report from the Mayor's Office?
I would just quickly say, it's a very busy time for grants. I talked about this yesterday. And there's something opening up every day. We have about 13 grants that are due between now and the end of June. So, we're going after all of them. So just, if you have questions, just bear with me if I don't see the email right away. I'll get on top of it, but
All right.
thanks.
Well, hopefully we can get a grant writer to help you out, because I know it's been a stress the last couple of months, and you know everyone is overextended beyond limitations, but we still get the work done, so that's appreciated. Anybody else for the good of the order? Meeting adjourned.
City Council.